Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Adjacent with Jace, a tabletop introduction and discussion brought to you by the Black Tower Stories. I am your host, Jace, and with me today, a heroic lion wherever you find him, rounds of drinks he's buying, but it's half and half he's trying, giving boosts of speed to allies in need, and front he leads with a roar to heed. Halfway through the battle, you wonder how he's faring. One time for once, this paladin is Aaron. Stumbled at the end, but I got it. We've traveled back in time to the youngest version of Aaron to have ever been seen. He got too close to the giant windmill, and it shaved him.
I am shedding.
You took cue from the last battle with all the acid. It's like, you know what? What if I also had no hair on my face?
There's a little bit. There's the roughness.
A wee bit of fuzz. How long does it take you to get the 5 o'clock shadow? Because for me, it's like 2 hours after I shave.
I'll probably have it in the morning.
Like my face. Like this will get noticeably stubble by like 2 or 3 hours after I shave. The top of my head, usually pretty good for a while. But this beard just immediately comes back.
Mine's slow, so it'll probably be in the morning. Several hours.
Well, welcome back, Aaron. It has been a long time, as it is for anyone who ever shows up on here, because we do this only twice a month sometimes, and sometimes twice a year, apparently. I don't remember the last time we did this. It's been a couple months.
I think I had to skip my turn because of work. So,
and last time on Adjacent with Jace, when it was supposed to play, we didn't because of last minute scheduling, so I decided just to work on the Baldur's Gate 3 layout that we were using, which, plug for now, every week that there's not a scheduled Adjacent with Jace, you can watch the Baldur's Gate 3 stream where the Black Tower Stories tries to take on BG3. But I digress. Tonight's special is, of course, we have Caribou Coffee. That was written on there for 4 sessions ago when there were caribou. I didn't change it because I didn't get to use it. Well, welcome, Aaron, to the illustrious show that you finally get to know. Well, I fixed the TV. It was clipped behind the counter.
I would have put T-Rex tequila.
Yeah, like I said, I put it up there for 3 weeks ago, and I don't change these things until I get to use them. Like your intro, I wrote that a while ago too, and I found I got to use it. I have one for Kilmo already wrote up too, so I don't have to worry about his. Anyway, how are you doing, Aaron?
Well, it's 73 degrees today, so I'm melting.
It was like 87? I don't know. It was fairly warm here.
Well, it was 50 2 days ago, so...
That sounds hideous. Actually, sounds amazing. I would love the colder weather, and then I'll complain when it's too cold.
When it's negative 25.
Oh, yeah. So bad. Hate it. Anyway, let's start right off, because I want to get into something I haven't done in several Adjacent with Jaces, and that's delve into the stats. And I have an amazing announcement. Some people thought it would never happen. I did, because I can project the future. But we have a new leader in damage dealt by the Adventures in Athoria crew of S&M. Volred has surpassed Izal, has cracked the precipice with an amazing number. How much damage do you think Volred's dealt so far?
I don't remember the last stat, so I'm going to say over 2K.
That is a fair guess. Last time,
Seeing as how he has,
it was in the 3,000s.
Oh.
So you are correct. You could also said over 5, and that still would have been correct technically.
Over 5?
Like 5, like this is the number 5 that comes after 4.
Oh.
Like it's at least 2. I know that.
Is it over 5K now?
No. He comes in at a whopping 4160. That's 4,160 points of damage. Would you like to guess how much he leads by? And of course, I'm in second place.
I'm going to say he's leading by 300.
Ooh, you are so close. He's leading by 298. That's very close.
Seeing as how he juiced his numbers the last few sessions.
Oh, yeah. And I'll just go to the stats for it. Like, there were some ones when we kind of didn't remember the rules for it, which is our fault. We don't fight every combat, every session, so... But then the last two sessions where we were following more strictly on the rules, he was still pumping out big numbers because he was still critting things that are very vulnerable to him murdering them.
Yeah, and that's where he's been juicing a little there on those. Every time he gets like the full thing, he always crits.
Like, he's going to crit, and even better now that he crit a beast monster, which adds a ton of more damage to his hit, which allowed him to pump out his biggest hit he has ever dealt. We said it on stream, but do you remember what that damage was? How much did he hit that damn caribou for?
Wasn't it like 150?
A little high, but you are in the right area of being in the hundreds.
That seems reasonable with how many dice he's rolling.
He hit that thing for 111 points of damage, which was enough to kill it twice over.
That's probably a Caleb and a half.
I don't know what Caleb's hit points is, but that would have downed him and scared him. Note to self. I wonder, because I don't know the rules. Polymorph, you turn into a beast. Note to self, never polymorph around Volred. His instincts will take over and he'll try to murder you.
And you will be absolutely eviscerated.
Like, don't know how many hit points you have, but it's not enough. That would have one-shotted most of the things that were in that room, except for like the T-Rex and the gorilla, which we were fighting.
Well, you were fighting the gorilla.
I was fighting an elephant too. Well, I was having a negotiation with an elephant that we were just having a disagreement.
I was being eaten.
Consumed. Still in the lead, however, is Eric with the most damage out of anyone because he gets to hit everyone. He leads by 498 points over Volred. So with 4658, he is ahead of Volred.
I don't know. He could close it. He could close the gap.
Good. Critting them things. Strategically sniping stuff off. There were some fights where like no one did damage or no one took damage. There's some very low. It's the problem is that he hits me a lot and I kind of contribute to the damage pool. You also get hit a lot as well. So whenever I see that number spike up to like the 80s and 90s for one combat after I review it, like, oh, Kelbeck was probably in a lot of trouble in this fight, and I don't have to even like go through and re-look at it. I could just look at the number and see 97 on damage. Like, well, that's not good. He probably lay on hands.
Last two sessions, I've been down to the single digits.
You fought a zoo, and then you've kept using your own HP to solve puzzles, which only I can do that.
Hey, I thought the yellow was Obliges. Okay.
You thought it was poison.
No, I knew it was acid. I thought it was gonna be like you can just pull, like you gotta athletics pull it apart.
I thought it was be very gentle and soft with it so it doesn't like constrict against itself like Obliges kind of stuff is. I don't know if wind was the answer, but by God, we chose it as our answer to it. And you were very clever. You solved the portal problem with rope.
And now none of us have rope.
I found out I had a rope. I didn't need to borrow your rope. I had it in my backpack. I had to delve into my bag of holding after I reviewed my inventory. So,
well, we got 50 feet of rope.
Woohoo! And a 10 feet of chain.
I don't know where the rope trick came from, but like, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I was like, make a loop, send it through. It's gonna come from above, put it through, and like
Pull them
it'll
together.
do a weird portal thing and pull them together. I bet you the easy thing to do would have just been to toss a bag of holding in.
We talked to Eric afterwards, and I was going to ask him if he came on if something happened. There were two known, like, easier ways of taking care of it. One, bag of holding, or a multi-dimensional thing throwing onto it would have caused it to collapse.
Portable hole, bag of holding.
Haversack, those kinds of things would have. Or casting a conjuration spell on it, like that requires teleportation, like would have also done it. I don't know. Those would have solved the puzzle as well. But I like the rope pull the portals together trick. That was neat.
I thought it was ingenious, and I haven't done a smart thing in a
Very smart,
while.
and you had 3 hit points by the end of all of it. I solved a problem with throwing a chunk of ice at it, because I don't know.
When the DM said Queen Mab was actually the statue, I was like, this is it.
I was like, oh, she's going to hit me, and I'm going to die. My goal when I threw the ice elemental shard at it was not to solve the puzzle. I wanted to trigger the fire to just keep hitting the ice thing because I thought it would be funny. I had no intention of solving that puzzle.
If we had stalled out a little, I was gonna take a piece of the ice-covered sphere and throw it at another one.
Start triggering shit. Like, we're bored. Or we're not good at puzzles, so I'm gonna hit things. All part of the illustrious plan of ours.
I think we could have gotten more loot.
We solved the problem. That's all that matters. Anyway, let's go into a little bit of more information and start with my typical topic I like to do everything with. And is there anything you wanted to talk about?
I wanted to talk about how I somehow keep getting the snot beat out of me.
Well,
even with an 18 AC.
That's because I don't know, but I do find it kind of funny. Because your AC isn't that high. In reality, it's the same as mine. It's also like the same as Yandere, and one higher than Volred. No, I think Volred's also 18. So your AC is not that incredibly high, so you're still a potent target to hit.
I have resorted to rolling IRL because D&D Beyond is a traitor to the cat people. And it will never be used again. I rolled once last session, and I never will again.
Well, it happens. I always roll garbage. That's why I roll with advantage to always mitigate that. So unless I have a plus 10 or advantage, I'm typically not doing it. Because I will always roll bad. I gotten lucky. I have not rolled this many crits in a long time. I don't do a lot of damage, but
there were a lot of crits last session.
Mm-hmm. It was fun.
I think Eric rolled like 3.
Yeah, he rolled 2 in one round. That was fun.
But he noped. He got noped out of 1.
Yeah, he hit you with a crit. Oh, fudge! I'm not gonna get a turn. It's like, no way.
He said nat 20, and I was like, wait, they can prevent crits. No, they
Next
do 0
turn.
reaction.
That was funny. I was so worried. It's like, oh, crap. I got hasted. It's gonna drop concentration. I'm gonna lose my turn. Oh well.
Though.
You passed by a little bit.
Only because of Bardic.
Mm-hmm. You require a lot of help. I think it's because you're bad at rolling. But a lot of people don't really benefit from the help that we could generate. Like, I roll with advantage, so the help action never really helps me because I'm going to reckless every time I get the opportunity.
Yeah, is Yandere restricted by a range for help?
Yeah, it's like 30 feet.
Oh, okay.
So he's usually in range, either 30 or 60. He's usually in range of most people. He stays in that area. But the only two people who benefit from it are you or Volred. And if he does it to Volred, that means Volred can move around. But if Volred isn't planning on doing that, then it's kind of wasted on him. And you need the help because you need it.
I think you know what I think it is? I'm not playing a fighter.
You have to think more fighter.
I can't just think, oh, I'll roll high and then I'll just smite. I have to think, okay, I have to hit. All right, and then I have to hit again. And that's my turn.
What I think you should do is every time you use the haste spell, also use your channel divinity.
I have to smite to use that.
Not the smite one, the athleticism one. What gives you advantage on like athletics and stuff?
I don't.
You have two channel divinities.
Yeah, but why would I fearless athlete when I haste?
Because it's just a flat bonus to you to help you, and you're not using your bonus action anyway, and you have a magic item that lets you get a free use of your channel divinity. So why not do? But have you, that look on your face? My God, have you not looked at your magical items? I have. I played as you. Join us today as we discover Kelbeck's character sheet. You have a magic item that lets you cast Bless, and you have a magic item that lets you use your channel divinity once extra free per day. They look on the face. And I know Peerless Athlete's not great, but when you utilize your action and you're like, well, I don't have a bonus action, that's just a flat buff to give you. That could be helpful. You never know. I always utilize my turn as like, can I use everything this turn? Can I use my movement? Can I use my bonus action? Can I use my attack? My action? I want to be able to use every aspect of my turn. Mostly because when the combat's over and something really bad happened, I don't want to be regretting like, man, I probably should use my bonus action that one turn. I should have used my action to do X, Y, and Z. Like, I would like to think I did everything I possibly could.
I see now. It requires attunement, so I am not wearing it.
What are you attuned,
I'm not attuned to it. I can cast Heroism.
Oh yeah, still a good spell.
Yes, but it is an action, so I may take that advice and put the amulet on.
Like, you ain't got nothing to do. You don't have to haste me, but like Heroism's good. It gets you those temporary hit points each turn. If you're not using Valor Heart, like always stacking up your defenses to make you that much more of a pain in the ass to deal with.
I need to read my stuff more. I didn't know what Heroism did.
It makes you immune to fear, and it gives you a temporary hit points every single turn. And you get hit a lot, so that's why Valor Heart and Heroism are good whenever like one doesn't work for the other.
Whichever one rolls higher.
Yeah, take them. Whichever one's good. Usually Heroism should be better because I think it adds a stat to it. But whichever's good. You can cast Heroism, I think, more than once.
Heroism is flat. Yeah, I can cast it up to 3 times per day.
How many times have you cast Heroism? So when I get your character, I was like, man, I should be activating these abilities. And I smite every time I hit with you. Like, doesn't matter. I'm going to work my way. I'll start in the middle spell slot area, and I'll work my way out. It's like, does this feel like a level 1 smite or a level 3 smite? And I'll just
like, how are they looking?
But I always start in like a 2. Level 2 smite, see how they react to it. Like, okay, he looks like he's not taking a ton of damage, and I'm not rolling very well. I'll do some 1s just to get some more dice on there. But by God, if I crit, max, what's my highest level spell slot? Smite all day.
Oh no! Look at all these dice. Oh.
Yeah, that's the learning Kelmec corner of the episode today. Anything else you want to talk about, Aaron?
Why don't paladins have proficiency with Constitution saving throws?
I always wonder, because they have wisdom and charisma, right?
Yeah.
The fact that they don't have a physical proficiency, I think is weird. They do make up for it with the
+3 or the plus charisma,
the aura
modifier.
I would highly suggest, was a little late, we're past level 12, using a ASI for resilient to get that proficiency. But the fact they don't start with it is kind of irritating.
Like, I kind of get it, because, like, the thematic of, like, the paladin is the, like, bulwark.
And wisdom is, you will not, the point of wisdom and charisma is, like, you will not be thwarted. Like, your will and your ability to maintain your mental aptitude and composure is charisma and wisdom. Intelligence, they're attacking your brain. Like, whatever, you failed that.
Like, I could be a meathead, but, like,
I understand not intelligence. But charisma and wisdom are thematic, but the fact that the lack of physical proficiency is kind of a pain in the ass.
Like, they give me immunity to diseases, but they can't give me a Constitution saving throw.
Like, advantage on Constitution on saving throw. How about that? Like, something to give them a physical advantage on something. Not just relying on the charisma aura.
I'm sure there's a subclass that does something, maybe. I haven't read through them all.
There's Oath of the Ancients that gives you advantage against spells. That's neat, but it's just not tough paladin thing. Which is why I think resilient is important, but a paladin is very mad, multi-attribute dependent, because you want strength, you want charisma, you want constitution, you kind of want that wisdom because it's a good save for you. You also don't want to fail every dex save in the world. Maybe you want to get dexterity. Like, intelligence is going to suck for you. Like, you have 3 main attributes, and then you want to have the rest of them at least okay. That way your aura can save you sometimes.
And, like, fighter is just whatever your attack is and constitution.
Yep. And then and don't have a negative in your soft scores.
Yeah.
Bard is charisma. Bard is just charisma and constitution as maybe a secondary.
Barbarian is just strength constitution.
Yeah, I'd like to prioritize constitution because hit points is how you stay alive. And wizards.
I want to talk about how funny it is that this whole time we've been running around in the winter realm, Halem ready to counterspell every time. It's like, is that a spell? No, it's an ability.
Makes sense. I understand him. He's a wizard. I've played a wizard before, and when you want to specialize in not letting spells go off, you gotta know when to counterspell. He also has 2 other reaction spells that he likes to use, so trigger happy sometimes. I don't. In our DM's Guild Discord server, I brought this up because I'm not a huge fan of using abilities of monsters to just replace spells, and like, oh, this is what a spell is, but it's an ability instead to avoid counterspell. Because that's why the game developers did that. They made the monsters have abilities so they don't constantly get counterspelled for it. But it does mean, like, this is a powerful ability and there's no way around it. you have to kind of save or suck.
I don't know. I'm on both sides. Like, it's huge to an enemy who has this big thing they do, and the wizard is just like, maybe no. Is it maybe it's a fourth or fifth level spell, and they use a third level counter spell, and they're just like,
yeah. But when a counter spell gets cast, I always assume it's going to work. It's like either it's a third level spell and it's going to work automatically, or that I'm in a 50-50 shot depending on my modifier. And usually you're in a higher than 50-50 shot. And Caleb is multi-class into Bard, so he's more than a 50-50 shot because he gets to add half his proficiency into that spell slot. So it's a little
like
better.
if you, I don't know if that rogue thing works with wizard.
It would, except for you're not the rogue ability lets you use that if you're proficient in that, and you can't be proficient in a skill check that isn't a specific thing. Like, you can't be proficient in initiative. You can't be proficient in a counterspell. Even though it is a check, it's not an abilities. It's not a specific skill. It's an ability check, not a skill check. I guess is how it's pronounced. Said. So you can't be proficient in it. Although, if you're an abjuration wizard, you get to add your proficiency bonus to it. It does not mean you're proficient in it. And a way around all that is the bard's ability to cast glibness on themselves, making it so they can never roll below a 15 on a charisma check, so they automatically counterspell every spell they just automatically do it, because you can't cast a spell of 19 on a roll. So, like, you'd automatically roll a 15 no matter what, and then you add your +5, so you automatically counterspell any spell.
You don't get to do anything until they backline you and just absolutely pummel you. And then
or it's an ability, and you can't counterspell it at all. Oh, well, crap.
I want to counterspell. It's an ability.
And I'm playing against 3 players or characters that have counterspell is a giant pain in the ass. But you then, like, as a DM, you get creative and you start putting your monsters in different spots, and you make a counterspell a lot harder on their end. I don't like using abilities for spells, but I will also throw enemy mages in there that have counterspell. So now everyone's very aware of positioning on the battlefield. And the paladin that has counterspell and the warlock who has counterspell don't have a lot of spell slots. The bard wizard does, though, that bastard.
Sorcerer. I don't know. Sorcerers can't learn counterspell.
Yeah, they can.
Oh, okay.
Anything else, Aaron, that you'd like to talk about?
Not really. Do you have anything on the docket today?
I got dockets of all kinds of dockets. So they've recently announced that they have begun the printing process for, I'm going to call it the 5.5 edition of the Player's Handbook, for the newest revisions. And some of the announcement that's come out is the different types of actions you can take in it. But I wanted to talk about one of the announcements, because Chris Perkins said in an interview that he thinks there's too many base classes in D&D. Right now there's 12 plus Artificer. He thinks there's too many. But you can't retroactively get rid of a whole bunch of them, because that's not how we do things. We just add more to them. And he would prefer it be something more in kin with a warrior, a mage, a cleric, and a rogue. Kind of like how it was in the earlier editions of 1 and Advanced D&D. And when you break it down into the different classes of what they are kind of just subclasses, or they all kind of things. Even in 5.5, they've diverged them or split them up into 4 different groups of experts, warriors, mages, I think it's called, and then I think it's something with clerics. So they are divided into 4 different ones, but they aren't subclasses of each other. They just kind of lowered them into it. Your experts
Fighter,
are your
barb, paladin,
barb.
ranger.
No, ranger is an expert. An expert is basically any class that gets expertise as a lower ability, because you have rogue gets it, bard gets it, and the ranger has expertise at lower levels as well now. Even with once Tasha's came out, they revised a bunch of stuff and they just made it like, yeah, let's just make it an expert of things.
Mage is warlock, wizard, sorcerer.
I think
Druid?
druid is the other mage. I'm not entirely sure how they split it up.
I would think druid would go into with cleric because it has heals.
Yeah, but I don't think it is, because I think monk is is the warrior. It's a monk, fighter, barbarian, and
Paladin.
I don't know if paladin's in it. But anyway, they kind of divide them up into 4. And I think it's neat because when you literally delve into it, you could make a barbarian a subclass of a fighter.
And a paladin is just a
holy fighter,
religious fighter.
Like, you could make them subclasses for those things, and that wouldn't be, or expertise if you want to go into what 3.5 and stuff were. So I could see why you could do that. It's just, I think it just limits their work and then makes it easier for them. But when I saw that he had said that, it delved into conversation, and I had a thought during all of that. And you had mentioned sorcerer a second ago, and I wanted to get into sorcerer. When you go into the description of sorcerer and how it's mechanically presented of how a sorcerer is, it is an innate bloodline magic that they just have, and they just learn spells.
Are we about to talk about how sorcerer should be using Constitution instead of Charisma?
No. Kind of. But what I want to talk about is, should a sorcerer be a class? Or should it be an overlapping template for a race?
I don't think it should be an overlapping template because people are freaky.
What do you mean people are freaky? You got to be very specific because this conversation can go in different ways.
People like to get it on.
Right.
With lots of things.
Which is why you have sorcerers.
Fantasy world. Exactly.
Because it's magic they innately have. It's not something they've trained for. It's not something they learned. It's something they were just born with because their parents got freaky, or someone has a bloodline way far down in their line, and it finally manifested.
And that's oh my lord! If you hear an iPhone ding, we have lightning. And oh my god, I get text alerts when there's lightning within 60, 30, and 15 of our site, and I live right up the road from it. So whatever I get. And it's just so that if guys are out in the field, they're not in a giant lightning rod when there's lightning around, because that's not a good idea.
Wow. My argument. Let me present this to it.
I think sorcerer shouldn't be. What do you mean a template? Are you saying like a dragonborn, like can only play a draconic bloodline sorcerer?
What I mean by template is, take a look at how there's a lot of races that have magical abilities and how they kind of change. The tiefling, there's different types of tieflings that all give you different abilities based around their bloodline of, are they a whatever type gives you, my ice gives you this, and this. And dragonborn have a template that happens depending on which their bloodline is. It gives them resistances and this type of breath weapon. You have elves all have like an innate wizard cantrip and spell, or just cantrips that they know, and there's magic that's built into some races But the fact that the sorcerer is a class that is built around a person's bloodline doesn't make sense that it's a class. Every other class progresses as if they've learned and gathered skills or trained, whereas sorcerer, you woke up one day and you can cast Firebolt. There's no real reason for it. That's how that's described in the book. I'm not saying every character should be able to play as I'm a wizard and also my overlapping clockwork sorcerer is in my bloodline as I'm also a mountain dwarf. But maybe the sorcerer, instead of being a 9th level caster, gets little boons that happen every so often as you level up. When you hit level 5, you innately know this spell now. And you just have this thing on you. It uses your charisma or constitution. I would suggest constitution as your casting modifier because that's what the dragonborn has to use and it's what the tiefling has to use. So make it your innate spell casting.
I agree that a sorcerer should use constitution because it is a bloodline thing. You're not convincing anyone that you can do this thing. You're just doing it.
Making it charisma is tied specifically into dragons because dragons cast with their charisma. They don't cast with their constitution. When they do cast.
Not just sorcerer. But I also know why sorcerer is charisma because like Bard was the only charisma caster, and they were like, well, here's another caster. What do we make it? Intelligence? There's already fucking wizard who can just fucking.
And they'd be identical if it was a wizard. And there's no reason that a sorcerer would be intelligence because they don't know what they're doing. But I think it'd be a cool because they have the aberrant dragon mark feat that you can get that gives you spell casting, which just make that like a template to put on every character. I also think it'd be a good way just, hey, what if you played a campaign where everyone's playing what they wanted, but everyone is also a sorcerer as well? But you don't get to pick any of your spells. All of it's randomly decided for you.
Okay, that's what you mean.
Yeah, you should never, a sorcerer, for one other thing, I don't think a sorcerer should ever be able to pick their spells. They shouldn't be able to pick them.
That's where I was a little lost there. So if someone's like a draconic bloodline, like all their spells are kind of going to be thematically bound to the bloodline.
Yep. You should have a specific spell list because every sorcerer has a specific spell list that's added to their things they might know based off the bloodline.
And like Fey Ancestry would be more illusion and some other things.
Yeah. Make them have a designated spell list. And those are what you know. And now you also have some meta magic that you also might know just because it's stuff that you can do. You're manipulating.
And you can balance that. Like right now they have a pretty... They can select their spells like when they level, but then they're locked in that and they can't prepare spells.
They also don't know very many. They only know like 15 spells. They don't know a lot.
And so you could restrict that spell list and like give a little more meta magic points maybe.
Yep, because it's, I don't know.
You can restore a number of meta magic points, like a number determined by your level, a number of times equal to your Constitution modifier.
Yeah, I just don't think it should be a class, and that's something that they brought up. Like we have too many classes. Well, we have one class that doesn't make any sense.
Warlock.
Warlock. There's the thing. I don't really think Warlock should be like the Oathbreaker Paladin and the Death Cleric. The Death Cleric is in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and so is the Oathbreaker Paladin. Those are things that, as a player, you technically aren't allowed to pick. There's something that can be given to you by the DM, depending on the situation.
Oh.
The Death Cleric's not very good, but just for sakes of the argument here, a warlock in essence also probably should only be allowed to be given out by the DMs. Like you can't play a warlock without talking to your DM essentially if you want anything involving story. Otherwise you're just an Eldritch Blast shooter, and because you're only doing it for that.
And you're playing let's go super vanilla. Human fighter, you're playing. Something happens. You're fighting a demon, and there's a devil scheming in the background, and he's like he's kind of moving your group along, but like you need to get past that demon. He's like, hey, listen, you're about to die. I can give you a little bit of juice, but you gotta promise something. Okay, now you've locked in a level of warlock.
Or I would say, like, the first level of Warlock is it a level against your character. Like, this is something the DM has to give you. Your level 1 is free because you can only get it through a DM situation. And now you level up. You can choose to level up into the Warlock. Or restrict the Warlock like you would the Sorcerer in these situations and say, you just get abilities now because you did this thing.
It's just kind of like a tack-on thing.
Like, it's like a magic item or a familiar that has a bunch of abilities that you can get and access to, but it is 100% guided by what the DM can give you because they have to pick your spells that you can get, and if anything you want, you've got to talk to the DM because you just can't pick your own stuff.
Like there would be never a reason if you're a melee fighter. You would never get Eldritch Blast. There'd be no reason to. You'd have no purpose for it if you're in melee all the time.
But you'd pick Armor of Agathis because it's helpful for you. Your demon whatever would say I can't have you getting hit.
Step 1, I think.
Misty Vision. I don't know what there's all kinds of things that the Warlock could get as a template and overlap it. In going into dumbed down versions of classes, there's a Blood Hunter subclass that's basically it takes all the Warlock subclasses and makes it an additional subclass for the Blood Hunter and just takes away like all of their cool shit and gives them really bad stuff. I don't even know what it's called because the Blood Hunter is super confusing and no one ever plays it. But Spud in our game last campaign played that version of the Blood Hunter and it was so bad. I was like, why don't you just play?
You have to like hurt yourself to.
That's Blood Hunter in general, but like the subclass that he chose was the one that does the Warlock stuff. It's like, why don't you just play a Warlock? Because it does the same things you're trying to do, but better. But I don't know. That was my whole thing.
Hexblade Warlock.
That would have been better than whatever the hell he was playing before. That was my argument. Is that the Sorcerer? I don't want a Sorcerer as a class. I think it should be dumbed down and restricted into a racial feature that you can get because it's your bloodline. Warlock should be something only a DM can give a player and not something they should pick because it's. And I'm sure Eric would love it if, like, hey, a paladin can only be a holy person. It must be religious and all these things. Like, I'm not a fan of that because
I could never. You know, we've talked on stream, made jokes. I could never play like super religious. I love whacking. I love to just whack.
I want to hit really hard. Like, I like playing religious characters in D&D because in D&D, you know for a fact that those gods are real and they will F up your life if you mess with them. So it's like, it's kind of fun to play a religious character in those situations. It's like, yeah, I can literally talk to a god. We've done it multiple times.
We've talked to several.
Yeah, just mark them off the list. Got a whole bingo going. A couple other things because I'll just move off of my sorcerer bloodline tangent. We can be done with that, unless there's any other thing you want to tack on to it.
I wanted to circle around to 5.5. Is that where they're talking about giving weapons like
weapon properties? Yes, it's on my list of things to talk about. They're adding weapon properties.
I looked at it and I was like, yes, fighter.
It gives you a reason to utilize different weapons depending on the situation. Only certain classes can utilize them. It's your monk can utilize certain ones. Your barbarian, basically your warriors get to utilize the cool properties of these weapons because they're proficient with everything. Like a rogue is proficient in certain things too, though.
Do you know how long I've wanted to play a character that like mains a whip?
Whips
and
just
like I
suck,
can't.
though.
I know, but if you add like trips and stuff, and like then they can be a mid range and just like, yeah, my frontline guys on them, fucking get proned.
Why? You want to make combat more interesting? Make the weapons do something other than just a damage dice. Like, I attack this much damage. I attack this much damage. I attack this much damage. I attack.
My turn's done.
You're bleeding now, and you're staggered. You have disadvantage, and this one has advantage on attacking you now because of that. And there's actual things involved in the combat for it. And that's...
You can play freaking I can't remember the game right now.
Baldur's Gate?
No, you can. Oh, yes, Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate lets all the weapons have different abilities, which is really fun.
Castlevania, the show. You just use short sword, whip prone, short sword, meh.
You can use all the different properties of your weaponry to do something cool each time, and you don't have to worry about. I only can use a longsword because it's a D8, and I only want to use that. And there was when the things first came out, I had an argument with Eric, slightly on stream, mostly off stream, is that he doesn't like all of the abilities that these weapons could do. They could do all kinds of stuff, and I found his argument stupid because he also argues that there's not enough options in ability to personalize character building, and it's all based around your class. It's like, well, these weapons allow you to personalize how you fight in combat, and it's not based around your class. It's just based around your skill with it and the ability. I looked over all of them. Some of the abilities were pretty good. Like might be let's dumb them down. Some of them are also really awesome. That they're just neat little things. Like cleave lets you, when you hit something, you can deal your modifier damage to a nearby target. There's one that if you miss with the weapon, you can still do your modifier damage to them, even though you missed with it. There's all kinds of neat stuff that lets you involve the battlefield around you. That's not just triple.
Aren't there like that's like sunders, right? Like
that you can
if you
knock a weapon out of someone's hand. The combinations you can do with this class and the Battle Master are crazy, because not only will your weaponry, you can dual wield different weapons, have different effects, and utilize your Battle Master dies to do all kinds of stuff on here.
You're just getting me ready to play a Battle Master fighter.
You're not allowed to. You gotta play a Warlock with the rest of us.
No!
Hey, Hexblade Warlock. Yeah, tell you Hexblade. You'd be proficient with all this stuff and use all the cool abilities. I think. I don't know how the Hexblade Warlock works in 5.5. Player's Handbook's not out yet. It's just getting printed.
It's just Unearthed Arcana right now.
But I'm excited. Out of everything that's supposed to come out in 5.5, weapon properties are the thing I'm most excited about.
I saw the article come up on Unearthed Arcana, and I was like, huh, weapon abilities? What's that?
Ooh, these do all kinds of things. Like a monk hitting something like 6 times in a turn and dealing 2 different effects, because most of them you only get one of the effects, you have to designate it. But if you have more than one weapon specialization or something, that you can utilize 2 of the effects of them, and it makes the weapon so cool.
It gives, you know, it gives people something.
It gives
like
them options to do other than roll to attack, roll damage, roll to attack, roll damage.
Yeah.
Roll to attack, roll damage. That's it.
Like, I don't, like, maybe this guy's real freaking good with his sword. I don't want him to have a sword, so disarm him.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't disarm him in 5th Ed.
Yeah, you can't unless you're a Battle Master.
Yeah. Like, now I just gotta sit here and trade, and he's just gonna absolutely wail on me.
You're like, oh, well, I want to knock it out of his hand. Like, all right, what type of check is that? I don't know.
But it's also up to the DM if they want to do that, kind of stuff.
I
right
actually
now.
think it's in the mechanics. There's somewhere in the rules about disarming someone. I don't know what it is. It's never really come up, and it's too difficult to go looking it up. Because despite what people think when they complain about 5th edition, which I've talked to Eric and people about, is like people complain that there's not enough nuance and understanding of how to do things. They feel like it's a lot of improv and you kind of make it up as you go. Like, no, there are rules for most things that people want to do in D&D 5th edition. You just can't find it. Despite there not being that many books compared to 3rd and 3.5 edition, you just can't. It's not organized. You can't find that crap.
Yeah, there's no rules on disarming. It would have to be a DM fiat thing that he just like has to make up the rules for.
Yeah, I'd probably rule it like in proposed athletics checks, the same way you try to push someone or knock them prone. Like you're trying to knock the weapon out of their hand. All right, this is the check we're gonna do.
Like they're holding the sword, so
who knows? I was listening to them review the player's handbook. There are rules for breaking stuff. That's be very prominent and like, how do I break this thing? What do I need to roll? How much damage do I need to deal to it? Can I break a weapon? Is supposed to be in there. Like those rules that would be easier to find. Hopefully they have it organized. They've reorganized the entire book.
I've seen some real good stuff in 5.5. And I'm pretty excited. Mainly for the weapon system. We're both really excited for the weapon system.
I'll play 5th edition. I'll just import the weapon system because I think that just works if they find the mechanic easy enough to import, because they're supposed to be compatible. I don't know if that's the adventures are compatible or the mechanics of I'm playing a 5th edition character, you're playing a 5.5. They're still compatible. I don't know. One might be more powerful, and I think that'd be BS. But as long as I see the mechanics for it, and I don't want to play 5.5, I'm going to take the weapon mechanics for it and just use them.
Like, let's say you can only use light weapons. Well, you're not going to use a short sword because it's 1d6. You're going to use a scimitar because it's 1d8.
Well, scimitar's 1d6.
Is scimitar 1d6?
Yeah.
That was 1d8.
That's 1d6.
Oh.
That's why a scimitar and short sword are practically the same weapon. But they have different.
Why even?
But they have different weapon properties in 5.5. They do slightly different things. So which one do you want to pick?
Yeah. So I'm super excited. When you said 5.5, I was like, is he talking about the Unearthed Arcana stuff? The
5.5. Love weapon. I'm excited because if you started in 3rd in 3.5 and you went into Pathfinder, the weapons all kind of did. They all felt different. All the different types of mundane weaponry they they felt different. Sometimes it's because it dealt 2d4. Sometimes it was just had an effect.
Hexblade. Pact of the Blade.
There you go. He's got a warlock, everybody. He's going to finally be an edgy caster.
Just going to make him a golden retriever boy.
This is my family weapon. I don't know where I found it.
I don't know. It talks to me sometimes, but I mean, I think it's pretty neat.
Well, Mr. Mundane, I would like you to tell me who is on your Deadpool.
Me.
You? Why would you say you?
Because almost every fight that doesn't get absolutely eviscerated by Volred, I pretty much end up almost dead. So
that's a good pick. I usually pick Calum because it's either you or Calum I typically pick, because you get into combat and you get hit a lot, and Calum is the squishy wizard. But now I need you to roll me with your mundane real-life dice a D100.
63.
What on the wild magic chart just happened? You cast fog clouds centered on yourself.
I tooted.
You are obscured. Isolde can do that. She can cast Fog Cloud. She's still only done it like twice. It's not super helpful.
No potted plant though. No potted plant.
No one's turned. No, someone turned it into potted plant once during this.
Oh, did they?
I think it was Eric.
Who's gonna kill us now? A freaking house plant.
Yes, just deal more than 1 point of damage to it, and then it'll turn back into a very deadly rogue. I wanted to say one additional thing about kind of clearing the air with damage and how initiative was supposed to be done, because we went over it very briefly during the session. And what we were having an issue with is we were basically getting 2 free rounds, or an entire free round, which isn't what's supposed to happen according to the rules. When combat starts, it's whenever somebody does something to initiate combat. So if you say, I want to pop off a shot while he's monologuing, I want to throw a grenade at him. When you make that decision, like, this is what I want to do, you roll initiative at that point. As soon as something that would require attack actions to happen, you roll initiative for everyone. Everyone involved. They're all in initiative now. Whether they're a peaceful barkeep or what, they are in initiative, so you can determine who can go where. From that point, Volred can go first if he rolls the highest, which he typically does because it's a very high initiative. And then everyone kind of delves into place. You determine, now that initiative's rolled, who is surprised. One of the rulings for surprise is the DM decides who's surprised, and it's entirely based off of stealth. So if you're just talking to someone face to face and you decided, I want to pull out my sword and stab them, they're not surprised. They might have been like, what is he doing, as you're reaching for your sword and drawing it and stabbing him, but they're not surprised. It's not enough to lower him awareness to where he's surprised. Also, surprise doesn't give you advantage. It just means you can't act in the first round of combat.
Yep.
So you determine who's surprised. If no one was stealthing, no one is surprised. Even if the enemy is 100 feet away, you weren't stealthed, they're not surprised. They are aware. Stealth has to be involved in some way. And then, once you determine surprise, you go top of the initiative. Who goes first? If Volred goes first, and no one else has acted, and he hits somebody, and they're not surprised, he doesn't get assassinate, but he does get advantage, because they had not gone in combat yet. So the surprise doesn't give you advantage. The fact that they haven't gone in combat yet gives you advantage. You only get...
You need to remember.
He's like, that way you don't have... What was happening is Volred would shoot an enemy, and then we'd go into initiative afterwards. And then Volred would go immediately again because he's at the top of the initiative. And we were double critting assassinating because we didn't really read it. We were doing it right at one point, and then we just stopped. I think we like take a break because of scheduling conflicts, and then we forget. I think Volred had just critted a whole bunch in the first couple rounds of combat before, and we just kind of were associating going first and critting like together, and we just mashed it back together. That's kind of how it was when we very first started, is he was critting things, and then it turned into it again. But anyway, there will not be multiple Volred turns in a row. It'll just be the first round of combat, unless they're surprised. Anyway,
makes sense.
I had to explain how stealth worked to Eric while we're moving bricks too. That was fun, because the way he was describing it is you can't stealth in combat, but you can. But then he's like, you have to use your passive perception in those situations, and that's how stealth is supposed to work in combat. Otherwise, you use an action to use a perception check. So, well, this was a fun show. We talked about the sorcerer. We talked about weapon properties. We talked about why a warlock is the future class for our entire party.
Except for Ari.
Who'll be a wizard. Because we're going to really make a weird campaign next time. Well, Aaron, thank you for showing up on time. Very proud of you. We talked about things. You shaved your face. We learned stats that Volred's in the lead. But thank you all for coming. I really have to go, and I hope you liked watching this really crappy show. So please like, follow, and subscribe is what I'm supposed to say. But as always, we'll see you next Tuesday. Good night, everyone. Farewell. Auf
Bye.
Wiedersehen. Toodles. Au revoir.